Hello, parents and students. You are probably asking these questions. What is music theory exam and why is it important? When I was in music school, while my fellow classmates, when they hear music theory class, they will always say, music theory is hard and boring. But I am that student who's like, yay, music theory. I love music theory not because it's easy, because it helps me understand why music is put together a certain way. Ever since I was young, I always want to know what I was playing. Wasn't enough to just play. I want to know why and what I'm playing. So music theory has always been very important to me, and I love taking music theory class. And so when I heard Mr. Kessler, he's on call with me today. When I heard that he's offering music theory class online, I was thrilled and very excited to be able to offer this opportunity to my student. So, Mr. Kessler, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Mr. Kessler. My name is James Kessler, and I've been a piano teacher for about 26 or 27 years. And of that time, at least 20 years, I've been a music theory teacher. And I've taught a lot of music composition classes. Um, and my young composers have created pieces that have won awards all over the country. I have been a classroom music teacher. I was teaching in the classroom for 11 years, where I taught grades K through 12. Um, and I taught a lot of different music theory classes at that time. My students were always scoring at the top compared with other teachers in the country. One year I had one of the top teacher assessments in the entire country. And I was giving workshops to other teachers, large format workshops where I taught other teachers how to get success in the AP Music Theory classroom.
Why don't you share with us your secret ingredient of making the success, how you teach differently than the traditional music teachers?
My approach to music theory has always been to understand how music is put together based on how it sounds. And even when we're looking at music on paper, we want to understand what the symbols on the paper are going to do to our emotions when we hear the sound of that music. So, music theory is a way of understanding music in terms of how it plays with our emotions. And I consider music composition kind of the same, another side of the same coin, because when we create our own music and when we're writing original music, we want to express our emotions through the music so that the listener can feel what we were feeling. So it allows us to become more expressive with the music that we create. And also, it allows us to understand the composer's expression when we play classical literature.
That sounds very interesting. So, music theory, it's not just logics on the paper. It's you are connecting it with what I heard from you is you are connecting with emotions and you are connecting with what we hear. You are connecting with the sound.
Absolutely. We're analyzing the music with the goal of understanding the emotional content and the expression.
Wow.
Yes.
Some people may be wondering what is audiation.
Okay.
Most my students know what audiation is, and when I
Yes.
say what is audiation, they'll say think musically. But to parents, what is audiation and why is that important?
Right. Okay. Well, think musically is a great way to describe what audiation is. Um, and some people describe it in a rather simple way by just saying that you can hear the music in your mind. And that's one aspect of audiation. It doesn't explain it fully, but that's a big part of it. So, um, students who never learned to audiate, they need to sit at the piano in order to hear what the music sounds like. If they're not near a piano, if they just look at the written music, it's pretty much meaningless to them. because it's just the symbols. They know what the letter names are, but it doesn't generate any kind of sound image in their mind, and certainly doesn't give them any sort of emotional um, idea of what the music is trying to express. So students who do have a robust audiation skill can simply look at music and fully comprehend what it sounds like, and even what the composer's intent was, and maybe even get a sense of what the emotional impact of the music would be if it were played for a listener.
So you
So
are describing the ability to simply look at the music away from the instrument without playing it and being able to hear what it sounds like and understand.
because of that, it means that a teacher needs to really understand a lot about how audiation works and how to untangle those knots so that students aren't going to be confused, because these exams can be very confusing, and a teacher who really understands not just music theory but also understands how music theory relates to audiation and how we can bridge the gap between um, a potentially confusing exam and what a student is trying to audiate.
Well, I think that's a great explanation. Can we look at some sample questions?
So this is a great example of how my teaching might be a little different than the next music theory teacher, because oftentimes this is taught by a conventional teacher as just a visual pattern. So just seeing that it's a line note followed by a nearby space note makes it a step, or when it's a line note going to another line note, it would be a skip. Or if it's a space note going to another space note, it would be a skip. I pride myself on teaching beyond the test. That's something that I've always talked about with other teachers, is the importance of teaching beyond the test. We might be listening for do, mi, so, and that sound is a skipping sound.
It's interesting.
This
So you are teaching beyond the test and giving them a foundation that when they just see these two notes, they actually see the bigger picture.
children learn what something is by learning what something also is not. And by making comparisons between familiar and unfamiliar elements, that's how children make inferences and grow their learning. If we only talk about it as just simple visual patterns, it's very easy to teach, but that doesn't really go far enough, because it isn't going to help serve the student as they grow as a musician and become more advanced. That limited information from the visual patterns becomes kind of useless unless you tie it into what's happening musically.
Exactly.
I'll just chant it for you with no emphasis. I'm going to chant it kind of like a robot. I'm going to do this intentionally. I'm going to take all of the expression out of my voice and just turn into a robot. Ba 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 ba. And that really didn't feel like music, did it? It just kind of, it seemed pretty mechanical.
Yeah, it's just sounds.
Right, they're just sounds. It doesn't really spark any sense of audiation in the listener. So, um, here's another difference where I might be different than another teacher. Instead of just counting up the beat numbers until they add up to the number 4, which is how this might be taught by another teacher, I want to teach the student how to feel this musically. We have a clue here. We know that this is in duple meter already. So we know that it's going to be a sensation of do day, do day, do day, do day, do, day, do, day. So if I chant this with my do, day rhythm syllables, because I know it's do, day from this time signature, I get do, day, do, day, do, day, do, do.
And that sounds totally different than the ba ba ba.
Yes. So as soon as you start to chant it with do day, my voice naturally becomes a little bit more expressive. And so now we can plug in where the missing bar lines are because we are setting it up into a framework of due days. So this gives a child a sense of what the rhythm really sounds like. And it's not just adding up to the number 4 like a math problem. That doesn't make us musicians. But chanting rhythmically with musical expression and due day rhythm syllables, that does make us a musician. You said that you really enjoyed music theory in college. Well, clearly I did too. And I think it's so important to give our students this joy of music theory because these sounds are just so wonderful and rich. And instead of just talking about the boring old how to analyze it, how to study it, we want it to become a rich and expressive tapestry of sounds that really means something to our students. So here we see from the level 8 exam, this is question 12, and it's asking us to transpose the given melody to a new key. Bum, 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 yada, ba, 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 bum, bum. So here I'm going to start on the tonic pitch, do, do, da, dee, do. Here I go. Yada dum bum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 bum. I'll sing it again. Here I go. Yada dum bum ba da 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 dum ba da 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 bum. So I would talk to my students about recognition of tonal patterns. So, for instance, the first measure has do, mi, so, and we see a passing tone. Do, re, mi. There's a passing tone pattern there. So, do, mi, so, tonic chord. I'm sure that a lot of this they're getting in their piano lessons, but this will really reinforce it. And seeing it in notation here and being able to recognize it in notation instantly is such an important skill. So this is kind of an elaborated pattern. This is just so, mi, so, and there's a lot of extra notes thrown in. But I would teach my students how to recognize it. It's just as simple, so, mi, so. There's lots of notes here, but it's just do, do, mi, so, do. So this is actually just a gigantic tonic chord. It's just a lot of tonic chord elaboration. So do, mi, so, mi, so, do, mi, so, do. So to transpose it into D, we better know where to find do, mi, and so in the key of D. Do, mi, and so will all be on space notes down here in this octave. So do, mi, so, we can use a hand staff. It would be do, mi, so. And then here we have so, mi, so. And then we have it up top. When we get into the higher register, it's going to be do, mi, so. And it's up here on a line, 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 line. So do, mi, so, and then end on do. How is this different than the way another teacher might teach it? Well, the reason this is a
I think I can chime in here.
yes, go ahead.
I used to be the other teacher. So here's one possible way. Just look at the alphabet from C to D, and you see that D is just one step higher than C. So what you do is look at every single note from start to finish. And if it's a line note, you make it go to the higher space and just copy every single note.
Yes. Yeah, that right. That would be another way to do it. You could simply visually copy every note one level higher on the staff, and you'd get the transposition that way.
But that
Um,
doesn't serve the student. They are just just writing out the melody without thinking of how it sounds, without the context, and they are seeing lots of dots, not
yes.
realizing what it meant.
And
And
it also, when you do things mindlessly in that way that you just described, it also increases the risk of making errors. And I've seen this many times because I've been teaching music theory for a very long time. The more turned off a student's brain is, and the more they're doing something very mechanically, the easier it is for errors to slip by because they're not really engaged in thinking musically. We talked about what is audiation. Audiation is thinking musically. If you're thinking mechanically, then you're not thinking musically. And it's easy to make mistakes when you're thinking mechanically. But when you're thinking musically, it's harder to make mistakes.
you are using more senses.
Right. Yes, that's a good way to put it. Yes.
And what I feel like you are teaching student, the most valuable skill is make you are making theory fun by connecting their eyes and their ears.
Yes. There was a well-known music theory professor that said, I love this quote. I learned this quote very early on in my teaching career, and it just always made a lot of sense to me. He said that a great musician can see with their ears and hear with their eyes.
Wow. I need to take a moment to process. See with their ears and hear with their eyes.
So, in other words, when you are listening to music, you should be able to, if you wish to, you should be able to see the music notation unfold in your mind as you are listening, even if it's an unknown piece. And in the same way, when you are looking at written music, you should be able to hear what it sounds like just by looking at it. Sharing in some of the fun ways that they can audiate too really makes music come more alive for them.
Thank you so much. And I really feel like this is such a wonderful opportunity. Usually, we don't get to take classes from teacher that lives hundreds of miles away. And so this online class with Mr. Kessler will be great to open up our ears and our eyes using all the senses to learn music and being able to one day pick up any instrument you like and just play. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.